My guest at this time is former Virginia Attorney General Ken Cuccinelli. He is now president of the Senate Conservatives Fund, and he's also director of the Regulatory Action Center at FreedomWorks. He joins me now to discuss how Republicans ought to approach the new Congress, both in terms of the expanded Republican majority in the Senate and the new minority in the House. We'll also get into what Mr. Cuccinelli says is historic work by the Trump administration in rolling back regulations. And Ken, Happy New Year. Thanks so much for being with us.
Hey, and Merry 10th day of Christmas.
Absolutely.
May your Lords leap high.
Exactly right. Exactly right. So as we speak here on Thursday, Nancy Pelosi is about to become Speaker for the second time, meaning, of course, Democrats control the House. Republicans get a slightly larger majority than they had, 53-47 now in the Senate. We'll get to the big picture in a second, but the immediate item, of course, on the agenda is the ongoing partial government shutdown. The president's been insisting on $5 billion for the wall. He's saying he's willing to compromise on that. The Democrats had initially said 1.6 for border security, but now they're not even willing to do that anymore. So what's the right play here for Republicans, both on at the White House end or the congressional end of Pennsylvania Avenue?
Well, I have to say, and you don't hear, as you well know, you don't hear me say this very often. I was pleased to see Mitch McConnell say, we're not going to pass along a House bill that doesn't include this funding. So he is expressly sided with the president, and I think that's a first on this issue. So it's good to see him backing up the president on this issue that's so important to base Republican voters, and for good reason. Let's not just treat this like it's politics. In this case, good policy is good politics, though not for the Democrats. And so I think we're going to ride this out. I think that show of unity between the new Senate Republican majority, which is bigger than the last one, and the president should be able to hold the line.
You know how this works, though. We're back from the holiday break, and so there's going to be a lot more media attention on the shutdown. The media generally blames Republicans for this. They'll certainly blame the president for it. So as that pressure builds, do you think Republicans will still hold the line?
I don't see a lot of the usual hand-wringing among Republicans, including establishment Republicans, that I'm used to seeing in circumstances like this. So I think they're, at least for now, girded for a bit of a haul, and to try and salvage some good policy at the border out of this. And ultimately, that's what Trump wants. So if he gets anything like that, he's going to be able to claim victory, which is the Democrats' problem. Victory for the Democrats only looks like the $0 that Pelosi talked about. And to the vast majority of Americans, that looks utterly and completely unreasonable, especially when the president says, well, I'm willing to compromise. It's too bad they're not. So who's the unreasonable player here? It's not Donald Trump.
Well, let's talk about what we're likely to see over the next couple of years here now. Obviously, a lot of this Congress will be gobbled up by attention to the 2020 presidential race, and it seems like half the Senate Democrats are probably going to be running in this thing, but we'll see who ultimately gets in the pile here. But in terms of the Republican priorities, with a 53-47 majority, they've got that. They've got the nuclear option now on judicial nominations and really all nominations. And so there's certain things they can do that they don't need the House to help them with. So will this mostly be about getting a lot of people confirmed here in the next couple of years, or is there something legislatively that you think they can actually get across the finish line too?
Well, those things do exist. I was a big conservative proponent of the conservative justice reform that the president signed before Christmas. That had broad bipartisan support. We had to work our way there among Republicans, and but wouldn't have gotten there without the president's support. And so it's clear that he won't simply object to something because Democrats support it. There are Republicans like that, as you and I both know, but the president has already demonstrated he's not among them. So there are areas where I think they can work together. It's funny to see Democrats agreeing with his getting troops out of Syria. They don't all agree with it, of course. You've got some Republican consternation about that. But look, that's in the direction that he promised when he was running. But it's turned out to be an area where, well, he doesn't have universal Democrat support. He does have some of their loudest characters conceding he's made a good decision there. So there's opportunities. I kind of wonder whether with the level of personal sniping going up associated with the president, not down as they get closer to 2020, will it even be possible on a personal human level to have cooperative work take place? I think it will, but it's going to present bigger and bigger challenges as the calendar rolls forward toward the 2020 elections.
Let's look over at the House now. While the Democrats in the Senate can't stop confirmations if the Republicans have 50 votes, over in the House, if you're in the minority, there's not a lot of power that you have. So how should Republicans on that side of Capitol Hill focus their energies as Pelosi era 2.0 kicks off here?
Well, I think their main role and job is going to be the counter voice, because as you point out, Greg, they can't stop anything if the Democrats stick together. So one of the things they'll try to do is to find wedges on issues that arise among Democrats and exploit them. The other is they'll simply be the counter voice. And this will be a bigger deal the crazier the behavior of the House Democrats. And it's obviously very early. It's day one of the Democrat majority. It's hard to gauge how nutty they could get. But they've got some members now, Cortez being sort of the poster child, that are unabashed, as opposed to their former abashed, socialists who object to things like paying for their programs. We saw that debate arise, and it'll carry out through today. And I think that which portion of the Democrat world exercises the most control over what actually moves forward in committees and onto the floor is going to dictate what the Republicans in the House are going to have to do. Are they going to be fighting subpoenas, meaning defending the president? Are they going to be dealing with just genuinely, openly, inarguably Marxist legislation, or are they going to have to be dealing with a craftier, more subtle opponent? And that's when Nancy Pelosi has to defend herself from the left, which I didn't think there was any left of Nancy Pelosi, and most of America doesn't think there is either. That suggests to me that the Republicans in the House are going to have plenty to do and a real opportunity to show a contrast between the absolute nuttiness of the current crop of the Democrat Party and the Republican alternative. And most of them, I'm very convinced, most of America doesn't really understand just how far left the Democrat Party has become. I mean, they've gone from Menshevik to Bolshevik, and I think where you're going to see that is going to be in the House. Could really hurt their 2020 presidential candidate.
All right, last topic, Ken. As I mentioned just a moment ago, you are the director of the Regulatory Action Center at FreedomWorks. There's a new study out by one of your friendly rivals over at the Competitive Enterprise Institute, which claims that this Trump administration, over the first 2 years, has made good on his pledge to slash, according to the Washington Examiner, costly federal regulations, issuing the fewest new rules in recorded history over the first half of this term. Yeah. So there's two ways to look at this. One is the number of regulations, and one is the significance and the infringement of said regulations. So how do you size it up?
Well, by both measures, the Trump administration has outstripped its prior Republican competitors, we'll call them, in this category, because this is a category of performance, not merely policy decision. All Republicans say they're for more limited government. All Republicans say they'd like less regulation and to unleash the economy. But really, certainly the Bushes didn't do this. Reagan is the person who made the best run at it, other than Trump. But they have been absolutely dedicated to it. Now, mind you, in the regulatory world, Trump is in the position Reagan was in on taxes. So when Reagan came in, the top tax rate was 70%. There was a lot of room for improvement, right? And they did. Reagan led a dramatic improvement by dropping the top rate to 28%. Now, how does that compare to Trump? Well, Trump, after Bush and Obama, the regulatory juggernaut had steamrolled along at such an incredible pace that not only is their absolute performance excellent, by comparison, they look genuinely Herculean in their accomplishments here, and they're having real effects on the economy. There's a reason the National Association for Manufacturers Confidence Index, the Small Business Confidence Index, these are at record highs or highest levels in decades, and those are forward-looking economic indicators. So that isn't just the tax bill. Tax bill's important, but the continual push downward on the regulatory burden is really unleashing a lot of pent-up entrepreneurial energy, along with, frankly, money that had sat on the sidelines and wasn't invested.
Wow. Some historic measures, to be sure. We'll see what happens over the next couple of years, and if there's a second term, if it continues at this pace as well. So, Ken, thanks very much for your insights today. We'll see how the 116th Congress plays out here. We appreciate your time.
Good to be with you as well.
Thank you so much.
Happy New Year.
You too. Happy New Year to you. Ken Cuccinelli, former Virginia Attorney General, now president of the Senate Conservatives Fund and director of the Regulatory Action Center at FreedomWorks. I'm Greg Columbus reporting for Radio America.